afternoon and welcome to Cedar Point, America's RollerCoaster. Very happy you could join us here today. This is an exciting moment in Cedar Point's 142-year history. Today is a great day to be at Cedar Point. It's really an historic day. Although this season we have a life-size T-Rex to say hello to our guests every day up front, the entrance to Cedar Point has pretty much been unchanged for many years, even decades. In fact, when I was a ride operator in 1969 on Frontier Lift, the entrance to the park was just the way it is today, pretty much. The ticket booths in front of me and behind most of you were built in the 1960s. In fact, if you walk out to the end of the booths and look straight down the line, the structure appears to be tilting ever so much. I can tell you, it is not an optical illusion. It's time for a change. First impressions count for a lot. We want our guests to be filled with a sense of excitement, of anticipation of the thrills that await inside as they approach the front gate to come to the park. For 2013, Cedar Point guests will arrive to a new entrance plaza. It will not only be beautiful, but it will also greatly improve access to ticket purchasing, season pass sales, and processing, and guest services. We will also have all new landscaping throughout the area. And what we do with the person who's in charge of weather in days like this, I get to ride the witch's wheel 10 times in a row. Maybe even 20. 20 I hear. We're about ready to go, trust me. We have professionals working on this.
Began their journey to Cedar Point and will arrive here to watch over the gate next season. If you're changing the entrance to the park, it must be done their way. They will keep watch from the skies as they dive and soar across this plaza. Only the most daring and adventurous of guests will fly with these guardians on GateKeeper. The task is monumental. Tallest drop, longest ride, massive maneuvers. Look and see what I have seen.
So who's ready to ride?
Wait, you're not telling the whole story.
As many of you know, I've been here for more than a few roller coaster announcements in my time, and I go back to Corkscrew in 1976, Gemini, Iron Dragon, Magnum XL200, Raptor, Millennium Force, Wicked Twister, Top Thrill Dragster, Maverick. It's a long and I think impressive list. Roller coasters really define who we are at Cedar Point. They are our calling card, if you will. Cedar Point's collection of roller coasters is second to none, and I believe a big reason we have been voted the best amusement park in the world for 14 years is because we are the amusement park with the best roller coasters. Coasters are in our DNA. GateKeeper will be a coaster in the tradition of Raptor, Millennium Force, Dragster, and Maverick. It will be a signature ride at Cedar Point, and it will be unlike any other ride in the park. GateKeeper will be the longest winged roller coaster in the world, and will also boast the longest drop of any winged roller coaster in the world. So, what's a winged roller coaster? I think you got a taste of it watching the video. The experience has been compared to riding on the wing of an airplane. Your feet dangling free, and your body moving as though it were one with the plane, or in our case, the coaster train. I have ridden a winged roller coaster, and it is a unique thrill. And it is a thrill. I'm confident GateKeeper will set the standard for all winged roller coasters. When we built Raptor in 1994, our then Vice President of Planning and Design, Lee Jewett, made the statement that Raptor would change the front of the park forever. Lee was certainly right. I believe GateKeeper will change the entrance of the park forever. Our guests will literally, as you saw in the video, walk under the coaster to enter the park. Lots of sporting events are started with flyovers. Well, at Cedar Point next year, about 500 times a day, we're going to have a flyover. GateKeeper will actually be a very quiet ride. It won't have the roar of Raptor, for reasons my colleague Monty Jasper is going to share with you in just a moment. But it will likely, I think, generate a few screams as it flies back and forth. GateKeeper will make a bold statement about who we are and what we are all about. This is a big project. It's already well underway. And here to tell you a little bit more about it is Monty Jasper, our Corporate Vice President for Engineering and Safety. Monty?
Thank you, John. You know what my responsibilities as corporate engineer of safety and engineering, I get to oversee construction for the Cedar Fair Parks. And as many of you can guess, we've already been working on GateKeeper for some time now, and I can tell you we're really excited. As you can see by the video, it is a unique ride experience with the riders out on the wing of the vehicle, staying way out there at the edge with their feet dangling away from the track. We think it's going to be an outstanding ride. We believe that many of our riders will actually try to ride it several times because they want to seek out their favorite seat as the experience changes from one place in the train to the next based on where you sit. Enough of that. The statistics up to date on the specifications for the ride. Windseeker will stand 170 feet tall at its highest. It will be traveling at 64 feet per second, or excuse me, 64 miles per hour at its fastest, and will travel 4,164 linear feet on one trip. It is a ride that's manufactured by a Swiss company by the name of Bollinger & Mabillard. They are a company that's known for manufacturing quality equipment that is very reliable. We, as far as construction goes, we're well underway on GateKeeper. I knew I was going to do that. But we have started the demolition of the disaster transport, and we're about 2 weeks away from having it completely gone. Space Spiral will run through Labor Day and then be taken down in the month of September and be completely gone by the end of that month. Foundations for GateKeeper will start around the 1st of October. We're very hopeful that track steel and columns could start arriving at the park in mid-October for the ride. And steel erection would start around the first week in November. After that, the station would be started around the first week in December. So You know, I will say that GateKeeper will be the third of our rides by Bollinger and Maviart here at Cedar Point. The first two, Raptor and Mantis, were extremely unique and wonderful attractions for us. And although GateKeeper will be a unique ride, like its predecessors, we believe it will maximize thrills. Thank you.
Well, of course we are too, and who better to talk about all the ride stats and facts and figures than Monty Jasper, our corporate VP of Safety and Engineering. We're going to have a short Q&A session with him right now while you finish eating, and then we'll go directly from that to the tour. All of this should wrap up by 5, so you guys should have plenty of time. Again, we won't keep you long on the tour. We're looking at just about 20 minutes. It's a quick walkthrough. But if you have to leave before then we again thank you for coming out. And please tell all your friends to come back to Cedar Point, especially for 2013. So we'll start off. We'll come to you with questions. I'm going to have Monty just say a couple of words reiterating what we talked about earlier, and then we'll open it up for questions. How does that sound? Is it really? Yeah, mine too. Bye. Ready, go.
Test, test. Thanks for waiting. You know, I covered most everything in the opening remarks on the ride, but you know, we think that GateKeeper is going to be an exciting attraction. You know, there may be other coasters of similar type out in the world, but we think this has got the best mix, length, height, and style, and reliability to make this a great coaster. We liken it to Raptor. It's going to be a ride a lot like that, and we think it's really going to generate a big push for it. Yeah. Go right ahead.
Okay, let's start off. I know you're dying to ask some questions, so let's just have a hand and I'll come out to you and we'll ask. Ask away. Okay, we'll start with Jason Hammond from the Great Ohio Coaster Club.
It looks like the coaster's coming right across the pavilion areas. Will the public pavilions be changed or lost?
Changed the right way. Altered so that we can put the coaster through there.
Who's up next? Okay, Mark Ashdown of the Great Ohio Coaster Club.
You made reference to the fact that it's going to be quiet, but I don't think you spoke any further about how it's going to be quiet.
Sure. We're looking at sand filling both the steel track and the columns, and make it as quiet as possible going across that front gate.
Do we know yet what the height restriction will be?
We haven't worked on a final determination on that yet. We kind of know, but we haven't made a final decision and announcement. So. What's your preference?
Well, one of the other ones is 50 inches. So.
We'll keep that in mind. I will say that probably the best answer for that is that we're looking for a very forgiving restraint. This company makes a nice over-the-shoulder restraint, has a nice vest with it, and we're thinking that a lot larger segment of the population is going to be able to ride this ride. So we're really looking forward to a good attraction.
That's kind of what I was just going to ask. The Wild Eagle Dollywood has the restraint that comes over. It's like the best, and it fits tighter as the ride's going on. Will that be the same type of restraint?
You know, I'm not familiar with the restraint that you're talking about, but I have ridden the one at Chicago, and that restraint is quite good, very forgiving, and is kind of what we're looking at.
Dawn with the Lake Erie Shores and Islands.
What part of the ride will be a part of the front gate? What part will we see out here?
Well, the lift will be off to the beach over here, okay, and that's where the first drop and everything will come off parallel to the beach. And then once you're finished with that opening maneuver, it'll walk across this parking lot, a series of bunny hills toward the front gate. When we get to this side, you'll go through what we call the first keyhole element, which is the big column that you'll turn sideways and go through. And then there'll be, as you go over into where the picnic pavilions are, you'll turn around and then come back through the second keyhole over that front gate area. So it'll kind of be a large arch over the front gate area both ways. That's correct, on both ends.
Ronnie, you may have already talked about this, and I didn't hear it. What is the average speed or the top speed and the average speed that's going to be in this?
Well, the top speed is going to be about 67 miles per hour. And we'll hit that in most of the drops. You know, friction will take a little bit off of it as you go along, but we'll hit that pretty consistently at the low points. Yes, sir. Okay. Well, I'll have to check that out.
Do we have any other questions? If not, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Monty, can you tell us a little bit about the timeline for the construction? First of all, touch on the deconstruction of disaster transport, which, as you can see, is a bit of a disaster area right behind us. And then the space spiral will be coming down shortly after Labor Day. Can you talk a little bit about what we will see and when we will start to see GateKeeper making an appearance?
I was just thinking that disaster transport is still well named for what you see over there. You know, as you mentioned, Annie, we've already gotten a week under our belt with that demolition, and you can see that company's doing a pretty good job holding that apart. We're thinking in a couple of weeks we'll have all of that down and out of here pretty quickly. We're going to run the space spiral until about Labor Day and give our final rides on it, and then then clear the area for the demolition contractor to come back and take it down. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go green on these demolitions. We're going to have recycle all this steel. So they're not going to be too ginger with it when they take it down. We expect the space spiral to be out of here by the end of September. And after that, we're going to start working upward. You know, the foundation contractors will be on site around October 1. Start putting in foundations. And, you know, I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping that we're going to see ride steel and track right around mid-October, maybe before we close here, so we should see some deliveries. The idea is that we're going to start steel erection as quickly as we can in November and get on around this ride. We're going to be chasing that foundation contractor with our steel erection. The ride will be finished as far as steel erection goes, hopefully in February, and then electrical is run concurrent with that. The stations run concurrent with that. And the idea is that we'll be doing commissioning right around the end of March, first part of April. So,
wonderful. I understand too that it will be very interesting to watch the space spiral come down. Can you talk a little bit? We've talked a little bit about that process. Can you share that with everyone?
Well, let's just put it this way: they're not going to be gentle with it. And considering the fact that we're going to demolish it and scrap it for steel, they don't have to worry too much about taking it apart. So it's going to be pulled over, and then they're going to snip it apart, just like this company that's doing over there right now. You can see them tearing steel out of those with those big claws. We're going to get after it.
Do we have some other? Oh, we have another question.
Larry from Lake Erie Shores and Islands. How many of this type of coaster are there in the country, and where's the closest one?
3 or 4 in Chicago is the closest one. 2 in the U.S. Okay, all right. 2 in the U.S. and the closest one is Chicago.
And ours is one of a kind. It is designed especially for us.
It'll be the best.
Troika also appears to be very close to the site. Will that be moving?
No, Troika will stay where it's at. There's been a lot of debate about Troika, but we're going to keep Troika. It's a good ride, and we'll stay in that neighborhood.
I just wanted to know
Ever going to be any theming elements like water mortars or anything like that on the ride?
Well, we're still working on a lot of that. You know, the GateKeeper name has kind of a double entendre going because it obviously is in front of the gate, but it's also kind of a medieval, mystical thing that I'm sure they're planning to design will work out as we go along. So you can see some hints of that already. Some of the signage and the design of the name is going to be.
Scott Short, American Coaster Enthusiast. You mentioned that the Troika would pretty much remain where it is. Are there any other changes going on in that general area, like the food stands and the restrooms over by the space car?
Well, we're still evaluating the food stands and the restroom over there. We want to make sure things look good for the attraction. One of the things we always try to do when we build a new ride is make sure that everything around it looks, you're not embarrassed by something, so to speak. You got something that's brand new on one side of the street that looks good on the other side. So.
Mr. Jasper, one more question for you. Will parking be affected in any of this?
Yes, it will be affected because the ride's going to come through part of our parking lot right across here. We will have some areas that are low zones that will be fenced off, and we will have some areas that will be converting into employee parking and moving some of our other employee parking around. So yes, there will be some effects on the main parking lot. Now we're gonna work it out so that we can shift things around.
Hi, Matt, Coaster Force. I was just back on the timeline. How far out do you have to start planning a coaster before you start constructing it?
Most of our coasters are 2 to 3 year projects, and from the time that we start discussing them to the time that they actually open to the public. So we're well on down the road with this one.
Hi. Was it a hard decision to not keep even the track for disaster, seeing there's not as many of those type of coasters left? For example, there's one in Ellisburg, Pennsylvania that they've been trying to build for, gosh, probably over 3 or 4 years now. Those type, was it a hard decision to say, okay, we're just going to scrap it, or did you didn't want to save it? Even just
you've written it, right? No, it probably wasn't as hard for me. I guess it could be because I'm not as sentimental about those things as I probably should be. But the bottom line is that design was really, really important back in the 1920s, and it's been very, very difficult to replicate that in a modern setting in amusement parks because those things had some problems back in the 1920s, and they could live with those kind of stuff. All right. So if you take a design that has some issues, and then you sit there and say, well, how do we get around this? Then you get a ride like Disaster that is really not the greatest ride you ever rode, but yet it's not. It was for us. It was a tweener. It was a ride that you grew up with. A lot of people, when they started coming with us when they were small kids, graduated up through Disaster and then on to rides. So we get a lot of questions like, oh gosh, it was my favorite when I was 12 years old and stuff like that. That kind of thing. So, we'll have to find a ride to take that place. So,
I had a question with regards to the station. This is a 3-train operation. The other 2 that are in the United States only have 2 trains. Is there any special considerations for that? Load, unload, is everything happening on one platform?
It is all happening on one platform. And as you know, the dynamics of this particular ride is that you're loading and unloading from each side. So there's no through loading in the ride like this. So that has some implications on how quickly you can load. But we have a block brake inside and ample braking outside to basically stake the train forward and get this done. So we're looking at pretty good capacity on the ride, probably very aggressive at 1,700 hours. So this is going to be a very, 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 very appealing ride from our guests.
We'll probably take one more question, and then I'd like to get us on our tour before it starts pouring.